we present My Music. A musical panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here to introduce the teams is Steve Race.
Thank you. My Music is the name of the game, and the contestants are, as usual, Ian Wallace and Denis Norden, competing against John Amis and Frank Muir. This opening round concerns cards and card games. Tubs, diamonds, hearts, spades, deuces, jacks, all that. The simple question is, Ian Wallace, what's the connection with cards? Ian, the card connection.
Well, it's a card game.
Yes.
In fact, and it's in Carmen.
Yes, that's right.
There's a curious. I mean, there's a Carmen, and one of the people taking part in this is called Mercedes.
Nearly, yes. Mercedes and Frasquita, yes. Act what of Carmen, just to get it right?
It's the third act.
The third act of Carmen, yes. The card scene, in fact, and you get 2 marks, Ian. Dennis, what has this to do with cards? Good themes. Huh?
Yeah, better than the picture. Elmer Bernstein.
Yes, but the connection with cards?
I can't. Well, all I can think of is that while the brass is playing that, cards are what the string section are playing. Most of that tune.
How true that is. Yeah. Do you remember the film? Who was in it? What part he played?
Well, it was The Man with the Golden Arm.
Yes.
And
Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra played a drug addict.
Well, yes, but more than that, what was his job, his calling, if you can call it, his profession?
I can't remember.
He was a dealer.
Oh. No, I didn't remember.
You're so near that, you always win, so we'll give you 1.5 out of 2, I think. You didn't get the actual card connection. John Amis.
Temper the woodwind to me.
Frank.
I just whispered to John that it was the theme music for Bridge over the River Kwai.
It would have been a nice card connection. I wish I'd thought of that. But I didn't. What I thought of instead was this question for John Amis. John, what's the connection here for cards?
Question that because of that quotation from the Barber of Seville overture, yes. But in fact it's from a ballet by Stravinsky which is called Jeu de Cartes, usually translated as the card party or card game.
That's absolutely right, and that's 2 marks to you, Jeu de Cartes, yes. Frank Muir, what has this to do with cards?
And friends, this story is true. I know because I knew the soul.
It's a wistful story.
Yes.
Of maudlin, sentimental load of rubbish about somebody discovering a pack of cards, some soldier, and going through the whole thing about the cards.
Who was the deliverer there, the singer?
It was an American gentleman.
Yes,
wasn't
yes.
it? Max Bygraves gave it a swift run in this country.
Yeah, Tommy Steele had a go at this too.
Did he?
Yes, but it was there.
Steele.
Recognise the name of who this was? The American. It was Phil Harris.
Was it?
Yes, who actually, I think launched it.
He should have benefited from his own advice, shouldn't he?
Well, 2 marks to you anyway, because you got, yes, we got the card connection, so that's right, 2 marks. Now for something quite, for us, unusual. This next round offers each of the 4 a chance to pick up 6 marks. And a couple for the audience as well, eventually, at the end.
Give me green stem.
It's simply a case of thinking of a composer's name to represent each letter of the alphabet.
No problem.
I'll go around quickly, and I'm not going to work on your own, not in pairs here, and I'm not going to give you much time, because otherwise it'll take you an entire day to get through. So, starting with you, Ian, alphabet letters like B for Beethoven. So, Ian, A for...
Malcolm Arnold.
Arnold, yes, or Albini, yes. Denis Norden, B for...
Elmer Bernstein.
Yes,
The man with the golden mouth.
Thank you. John Amos, C for...
Cécile Chaminade.
Oh, good, yes, double C's there. Frank, D for...
Delia. Delius.
Yes. You think of his sister, weren't you? Well, yes. Yes, that's right.
Delia, my Delia.
Ian, E for...
Oh, Elgar.
Yes. Dennis, F for...
Sammy Fain.
Yes. Oh, who? Yes, Sammy Fain, songwriter, or Frimmel, or DeFalio, something like that, yes. John Amos, G for...
Ferde Grofe.
Yes, or Grieg, or Gardner, or Granados, yes. Frank Muir, H for...
Humperdinck.
Frank has been bright enough to spot that he's going to come round every 4th one. He's put his letters down, and he's doing some preliminary work. We shall see. Right, on again. Ian, I for...
Ireland.
Yes, John Ireland, good. Dennis, J for...
Isham Jones.
You do have some weird ones, don't you? Yes, or Scott Joplin, or Janacek. John Amos, K for...
Kodai.
Yes, or Kern. Frank Muir, L for...
I've got a little list.
True. A little Franz list. Ian Wallace, M for...
Mozart.
Yes. Dennis, N for...
I knew it was coming, but I still couldn't. Jimmy Noon.
Clarinet. Obscure, yes, a jazz clarinet player who wrote a thing
You
called...
also haven't got time to deny it, have you?
I had in mind Ivan Novello, actually.
Oh, yeah.
John Amos, O for...
Offenbach.
Offenbach, yes. Frank, P for...
Plonk.
Or, come on.
Poulain.
Yes, all right, better, yes. Or Puccini, yes. Ian, Q for...
Roger Quilter.
Quilter. Dennis, R for...
Richard Rogers.
Well, you might have had me, yes. but nobody had Norden for N, so never mind.
The race is not always to the swift.
John Amos, S for... It's your easiest
Let's
one.
be esoteric. Shimanovsky.
Oh, yeah. Oh, S-Z, yes, all right, yes. Doesn't start with ZS, does it? Frank Muir, T for...
Tchaikovsky.
Yes. Ian Wallace, U, the hardest so far. U for...
You.
I found...
Yeah, Humperdinck.
I'm going to give you half a mark for that. It's a jolly good try. Uber or Urban would do nicely for you there, but it's a diabolically difficult one. Dennis, V for...
I think it is. Van Heusen. Jimmy Van Heusen.
Yes,
Wrote
all right.
Frank,
all
Come
right,
Fly
yes.
With Me.
Or Verdi would be easier.
Yes. Easier for
John
you.
Amos, W for...
Walton.
Yes, or Wagner, that's right. Frank, X for...
X directory.
Do you know there is one? There's a Greek composer.
Very likely.
Not Xenophon, not Xerxes, but...
Hang on.
Oh, I wonder if
Whoops.
John's writing it out. It's such a
Not
difficult...
only writing it out, but in mauve ink.
Such a difficult one with Alphabetical.
Xenades.
No, not quite.
Say
Say it, John.
Xenakis.
Xenakis. Yes.
Xenakis.
Yes, all right. There's your mark. And let's offer the audience the remaining 2 letters. Audience, Y for...
Vincent Newman.
Anybody? Yes, Vincent Newman's, the Iradier, Peter York.
Jack Yellen.
And Z for... Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, madam. Or Zira, or Bob Zerke, or Carl Zeller. The audience have got their marks. The breathless business, we only dropped, I think, half a mark in the whole of that piece. Anyway, time will tell later on. Well done, gentlemen. And back to our normal tempo. Several of the world's favourite hymn tunes were written by composers who made their mark in the wider field of concert music, or music in general. I'll play you just a bar or two. Ian, who composed this?
Ooh, the years roll back to when, if you will believe it, I was a boy soprano.
Hey.
What
happened?
Well, what happened as far as that particular hymn was concerned, that I had to sing a verse of that solo.
Oh, well, you know it then.
And so it's For All the Saints, and it's the tune is by Vaughan Williams.
By Vaughan Williams, yes. The tune is called Sine Nomine. Without name, you would call it probably No Name Jive, I think. Dennis would be remembering the old record of that name. Yes, Vaughan Williams gets a mark for Ian Wallace. Dennis,
I used to sing Cherry Ripe in the original key.
You may yet again later on in the series, I think.
I led with my larynx there.
Right, on to Dennis. Dennis, who composed this?
I'm looking towards my boy soprano here.
You must know.
Nothing, go on. You can all write on Cherry, right? But you can't help your mate.
Oh, I think this is you've lost this one. The tune is called Thaxted in the hymn books. I vow to thee, my country.
All earthly things above.
Yes. Thank your lucky stars. I'm not going to give you any more time to get this. It's also in the planets, of course. Gustav Holst. Yeah, I can't give any marks there, can I?
No.
John, your turn. Who composed this? Difficult, as some of your questions tend to be. The strife is o'er, of course, the tune is called Victory. You don't know, Rose, do you? It's described in the hymn book as From Palestrina. Palestrina, who was, of course, from Palestrina, 16th century composer. No marks to you. Frank Muir, who composed this? It's being written down, I think.
We think it's early 18th century, Germanic composer.
Ah, yes. In origin, at any rate. If not ultimately, that's right. Give me a name, please.
Handel.
Handel would do nicely. From Judas Maccabeus, yes, thine be the glory. Handel is right, gets you a mark there. The subject of jazz has been rather neglected in these programs. Everywhere else too, for that matter. Here are some jazz nicknames. The question is simply, who are they and what do or did they play? Ian Wallace, if you heard a duet by Fats and Pops, what instruments would you be hearing?
Fats and Pops. Fats is presumably Fats Waller.
Could be, yes. And Pops?
Louis Armstrong.
Yes, Pops, known as Pops, that's right. It could have been also Fats Navarro and Pops Foster. But anyway, a duet between Fats Waller and Louis Armstrong would be on what instruments then?
Well, if Fats Waller played the piano, and Louis Armstrong played the trumpet.
Yes, that's right. Good, 2 marks to you.
I would have thought also it would have had a vocal possibility. I would have loved to have heard those two singing
together. Yes, wouldn't that have been marvellous? And it's a wonder they never did. I don't think they ever recorded together. Perhaps different record labels in those days, I would guess. Dennis, they sound like two youngsters. What instruments would occur in a duet between the Kid Krupa and Laddie Busby?
Oh, Laddie Busby is a very good trombone player.
Indeed, that's right.
The Kid Krupa. You don't mean Gene Krupa, the...
No, he was named the Kid Krupa.
Oh, is that the English boy?
Yes.
Was
Victor Feldman.
Victor Feldman,
the drummer.
As a boy of 7, was called the Kid Krupa. Later went to the vibraphone and went to America, of course, became a very fine session musician there. 2 marks to you. So the instruments would be...
the trombone and drums.
Drums, that's right, yes. John Amos, a trio, a quartet. Let's have a quartet between Duke, Count, Earl, and King. What instruments would that have involved? Duke, Count, Earl, King.
Well, the Duke would be on a piano.
Yes. Duke. Duke who? Duke, get the name.
Ellington,
yes. Count.
Basie.
Also piano.
Piano.
Earl.
Hines.
Yes.
Piano.
Yes. And King.
Cole. Nat King.
Nat King Cole. I hadn't thought of him, but that's acceptable. Yes, a fourth piano, in fact. Yes, I'd thought of King Oliver, who would have played the cornet. Other possibilities, Duke Jordan, Earl Warren, and others, but you have the marks.
Violin.
Actually, I don't think he did. He was just the angel who hired them, wasn't he? He hired three fiddles, didn't he? I think he played them himself. Frank, if you heard Bird and Slam together, what would they be playing? Bird
is Charlie Parker.
Yes, they're playing
it was a saxophone.
Yes, alto saxophone.
Alto, was it?
Slam.
I was about to say tenor.
You played
Slam
tenor
Stewart.
as well. Slam Stewart, yes, good.
Slam Stewart, who played bass.
Yes, and had a special way of playing it with a bow and humming at the same time. Yes, Slam Stewart. I didn't think you'd know him, but you did. So you get the full marks. Leading at the moment by just 1 mark, John Amos and Frank Muir. Some slightly unusual examples of the human voice. Ian, going back to your days as a teenage radio listener, can you identify this singing voice? He didn't sing very often. Usually he acted as conductor and compere.
Never saw the grass look greener, never saw the sky serena. What a lot of fun for everyone, sitting in the sun all day. All the little boys excited, all the little girls delighted. What a lot of fun for everyone, sitting in the sun all day. The sun has got his hat on, hip 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 hooray. The sun has got his hat on and he's coming out
today. We all know the song. Who's the singer, Ian? It's difficult, but there he is.
Oh, that is difficult.
Very famous man indeed. Conductor, compere, and their singer.
Well, a conductor and compere, makes one think it must be Henry Hall.
It was Henry Hall actually singing. Good for you. Yes.
And there's not in the singing any of that hesitation that was so marvellous in the compere.
In his guest nights, yes, that's right.
Marvellous.
Dennis, on what occasion might you hear this curious kind of singing?
It reminds me nothing so much as, have you ever got back to where you parked your car just as it's being towed away? And you try to stop the van. That's exactly so. That sounds like something like New Year's Eve. People have parked on double. That's the double yellow line chorus. It's almost a kind of dawn chorus.
It's certainly outdoor and to do with the countryside.
It sounds like a sort of tremendously wild cattle auction.
Yes. They're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it was. It's a pretty wild and ritualistic affair. It's the chant that represents the kill at a fox hunt. John, your turn. Listen to this, especially to the words, and see if you can tell me where it was recorded.
When lion walks the hill by me, he saw our church and steeple, and lords on Medleys of green, with ear and leather on his feet, and scarcely any teeth.
Now, where was that recorded?
In an airing cupboard.
The record company will love you for that.
Yes, they will.
Yeah. No. Did you hear the words? They weren't very clear.
No, lion and something.
Yes, when lion walked to the hill, I ween, he saw our church and steeple, and so on. And it ends, although you didn't hear this bit, I'll build, quoth he, as he looked down, a road to far off London town.
It sounds like one of those children's operas.
No, I can't give the mark, can I? It was recorded in the speech room of Harrow School. It's one of Harrow's school songs. John Lyon's Road, it's called. Were you at Harrow, Frank, or Eton?
I was at Leighton County High School for boys. Unhappily, there was also a Leighton County High School for girls. I didn't go there.
Over to Frank. Here's an unusual performance, Frank, of one of the Beatles' songs.
It has been a hard day's night, and I have been working like a dog. It's been a hard day's night. I should be sleeping like a log. But when I get home to you, I find the things that you do will make me feel all right.
Frank, who's that?
Well, it's Peter Sellers being Laurence Olivier.
Being
Laurence Olivier.
Well, yes, but here, Laurence Olivier being somebody as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I thought it was just Richard III, I thought.
Yeah, that's right. But it was, yes.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, you'll get a mark.
Being Laurence Olivier, being Richard III.
Yes. Yes, it was. And Peter Sellers, it was Hard Day's Night. We're going to end with a crooning contest. Vintage Bing Crosby records to start off each of our contestants on his own bid for stardom. Dennis, you first, as it's the last round.
Don't bet on me if you can't get the money back.
A middle bit from early Bing, and then see if you can pick up with the last 8 bars of the chorus.
Especially, there should be a beautiful girl next door. Say to that girl next door, now don't think I'm bold, but my mother told me to
love thy neighbor, and you will find your labor very much easier. Life will be breezier if you love thy neighbor. I didn't make any attempt to jump.
Well, you could tell when...
mistake. I didn't make any mistake.
You could tell when Bing stopped because the orchestra dropped out.
You know, I tell you, my case is exactly this. Mark Twain was a man who used to swear an awful lot in his private life, and he was married, as you probably know, to a very prim wife who used to burn some of his writings and so on. And one day he was something with his shirt where she hadn't ironed it or buttons were off it, and he looked at his shirt and he let flow a flow of language, and she was so incensed that she repeated at the end of it every swear word he'd used, saying them very slowly and very emphatically. And he put his hand on her shoulder and he said, "My dear, you've got the words, but you don't know the tune." And that's my trouble.
Moral, never take on Mark Twain to his wife. Yeah. Anyway, 2 marks to Dennis. John, knowing this isn't exactly your scene, we'll have one phrase of Bing, then La La for you, the tune that follows. For your second mark, I'm going to ask you the composer's name. So here's Bing first.
Love is a dream, yet it's so real, hard to explain just how you feel. Deep in your heart, joy seems to dwell like all that perfectly swell.
Then on. Really? What happened to...
With the piano took that.
Was what you were singing, I can't think offhand, from the same piece?
I think so.
Anyway, let's have the composer's name.
It's one of those chains of waltzes. Johann Strauss.
Yes, which one?
It's the Kaiserwalzer.
No, it's not. No, it's the Emperor. Well, yes, it's the... So it is. So it is. Yes. Saved by the skin of my ignorance, weren't you? That's right. Yes, it's the Emperor.
Since we're talking about Mark Twain, you know that he was very disappointed when he started to learn German because he found that the words he liked best were not quite pronounced as he thought. They were vomit and damn it.
Frank, as in Denis's case, a middle bit with the last phrase up to you.
My heart was a desert, you planted its seed, and this is the flower, this hour of sweet fulfillment.
Was it all a dream, this joy supreme that came to us from the moon? Oh no, it wasn't a dream.
All right.
Actually, you know, Steve, you asked us, I think it was last week, about a song for the cheese board.
Yes.
Can it be the breeze that fills the room with rare and magic perfume? That would be the one for the cheese.
Nice one, that would have been. Yeah. Anyway, Frank gets his marks there, and Ian, your turn. A rather weird, wonderful version of a song you know well, but it does happen to be in your key. Bing first, in his own way, and then you in your way.
We could make believe I love you, only make believe that you love me. Others find peace of mind. Couldn't you, couldn't I, couldn't we? Make believe our lips are blending in a phantom kiss, or two or three. Might as well make believe that I love you, or to tell the truth, I do.
There, I'm afraid our time runs out. A victory this week by 1 mark for John Amis and Frank Muir. Goodbye.
Taking part in My Music were John Amis, Frank Muir, Ian Wallace, and Denis Norden. The chairman was Steve Race. The questions were compiled by Steve Race, and the program was produced by Tony Schreier.
The BBC presents My Music, a radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the teams.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to another edition of My Music, featuring, nay starring, Ian Wallace and Denis Norden in competition with John Amis and Frank Muir. And we begin with straightforward musical identification. Ian Wallace, this lovely piece of music, where did I find it? I think that's breathtakingly lovely, that music. Where did I find it, Ian?
You found it in Tosca.
I did, yes.
You found it in the first act of Tosca?
Yes, the stage directions at that point say, Scarpia accompanies Tosca reassuringly to the door of the church, and that's the particular moment there. 2 marks to Ian.
The terrible moment at the end when Tosca throws herself off the battlements to right into the Tiber has occasionally been attended by great technical difficulties in opera houses. One occasion particularly when they had a mattress not very far below the battlements at the back, an inflatable mattress, and some rather overzealous stage crew person had inflated this thing a little too high, so that when Tosca flung herself over the battlement, she landed on this mattress and bounced right up again in full view of the audience.
Denis Norden, we come to you. 1 mark each for the singer and the name of the songwriter, but beware, because you may jump to a wrong conclusion.
In the old-fashioned way.
Yes.
Breathtakingly lovely. Well, horses, yeah. Yeah, that's quite a recent record for this programme, actually.
Yes, that's right.
That was Jack Jones flinging himself over the battlements of Charles Aznavour.
Yes, that's right, it was, yes. And using the introduction of Glenn Miller's signature tune.
Yeah, it's a good record there.
Jack Jones, Aznavour, 2 marks to you. John Amis, can you identify the composer, just the composer, of this lush bit of orchestral writing? I play music like that on the air, I get swamped with letters from people wanting to buy the record. Always get them.
My first thought was Respighi, but my second thought, which I think it may be nearer the mark, is Jacques Ibert.
You got him. Jacques Ibert. And the title of the piece, do you happen to know?
It's called Escale.
That's right, and it's about a cruise.
Yes, that piece is so much better than anything else he wrote, I wonder whether somebody else wrote it for him. Or vice versa.
You're going to get swamped with solicitors letters.
It comes from Jacques Ibert's Escale, the first movement called Rome-Palermo. It was written to describe a Mediterranean cruise. He's the man, of course, who made a small fortune out of a little donkey, isn't he? Little white donkey.
Was that sung by Toscanini? Toscanina.
Frank, it's your turn. You know, we get it before the end of the programme. Frank, I gather you listen to a lot of serious music when you're working at home. I read this somewhere, especially piano music. Can you give the composer's name and some idea of a title of this, bearing in mind that it sounds somewhat spontaneous?
Very much done. Yes, I got that it was an impromptu.
Where did you get that from?
You got it from your cue.
Oh, yeah, good.
You gave me a clue about it.
Good.
And
I never thought you listened to anything I said.
No, I do. Good. And I also got some further information from my port bow that it's Schubert, yes. And he's in a flat with a minor. That was
Yes,
roughly.
It's Schubert's 4th impromptu, opus 90. You're absolutely right. I always like do you remember the man who said, I don't think much of that impromptu, it sounds as though he's making it up as he goes along. Anyway, 2 marks for everybody on that round, so we're off to a good start. And we move on to the next round. Ian, back to you again. If I complimented you on your ballon, what sort of line would you be in? Your ballon, B-A-L-L-O-N.
I think at the moment I'd be rather insulted because by working very hard at it, I've just managed to lose a stone. I seem to think that ballon is French for windbag or swelling.
No, it really isn't, I'm afraid. It's not according to my information. You would be flattered, I think, if I complimented you on your ballon, because ballon is lightness and elasticity. It's a term in ballet, and it's named after Jean Ballon, who was a dancer at the Paris Opera in 1690 to 1710, round about that time. So ballon is lightness.
Oh, I see. But I'm very touched that you should have thought of something light and elastic
Well, it was
connection with me.
It was worth the loss of a mark to be able to tell us you've lost a stone, wasn't it?
It was.
Shall we give him a mark for losing a stone?
Yeah.
All right. May live to regret it, but never mind. Denis, Nijinsky and just a few others could execute an entrechat 10. What was that? Entrechat 10.
I think it's a form of punishment in ballet companies. It's go out there and do 10 entrechats. It's like doing full pack drill around the parade ground.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
But whatever it is, it's terribly difficult to do entrechat unless it could be French entre. It could be the second person singular of entrée, I believe. Entrechat 10. If they had an audition for Dick Whittington at a Paris theatre, after auditioning 9 cats, they would then say, Entrechat 10.
I think that's my favourite moment in the series so far. You're absolutely right, and you were right the first time too. Because entrechat 10 is a jump from and ending in the 5th position, during which the feet are crossed 10 times before finally plummeting to earth again. And Nijinsky could do 10 of them. John Amos, what was Patrick Healy Kay's contribution to the ballet? Patrick Healy Kay, with a hyphen.
That's the real name of Anton Dolan.
You're right, begod. And do you happen to know the real name of Dame Ninette de Valois? On a similar...
Sid Perks.
No, but very nearly. Edris Stannis. Yeah. Anton Dolin was indeed Patrick Healy Kay originally. And John gets his mark. Frank, your turn. I quote, "The feet are turned out and pressed closely together, the heel of the right foot against the toe of the left, and vice versa." What would you call that?
Bloody uncomfortable. I gather that it's a balletic question.
Ah, yes.
Ah, bon. It's one of the positions. They go sort of 10 to 2, and then there's a sort of 11:15.
That's right. Yes.
And then there's a 1:05.
I think you better stop.
And then there's
I think you better stop.
Yes.
Oh,
23:59 is my normal stance, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's about 11:30.
Yes. You think it's the 5th position?
I do.
You're right. It's the 5th position in ballet. So once again, everybody's got a mark. Anyway, this sorts them out because I've constructed again one of those piano medleys. Quick dashes through half a dozen tunes, and half a mark for each tune the teams identify. They work as teams this time with pens, ink, and paper. So, Ian and Denis, the first medley is for you. Take long. 6 tunes there, half a mark for each one. Ian, Denis, did you get the first one?
I used to know it as La Ronde.
La Ronde, yes, that's right. The theme of the original film of La Ronde. Good, that's one. Then came... Ian, perhaps.
It's something dances. It's in
Oh,
your
yes.
area.
Oh, yes.
But I don't know which, it's either Hungarian or Czechoslovakian.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
You tell me which.
Hungarian.
No.
Ladies do it. They have it at Keep Fit ladies class.
Yes, I know.
I can't give you a knight. It was the Slavonic dance, number 8 in G minor by Dvorak.
Yes.
Can't give you that one. Then came something only you would know this, I think, Ian, if you spotted it as it went by.
No, I didn't spot it as it went by.
I wish I'd have known.
That one. Schubert, Fifth Symphony from the third movement.
Yes.
Then came.
Twy.
No, before then.
No, I've got Over the Waves.
Yes, or The Loveliest Night of the Year, that's right. Then in the Twilight, and finally... Comrades, yes, was the last one, so that's 4 out of 6, 2 marks out of 3. Very good. And over to John and Frank for your medley. Right, here we go. Waltz time, folks. And that was the medley for John and Frank. How did you get on? Frank, you may have got the first one.
You say the first one, Frank?
I've got number 1.
Yes.
You say it, then.
That's the truth.
Number 1?
Yes. He said it. Can we now have a title, please?
No.
No, right.
No.
Good Night, Irene was the first one. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. Then came... Did you get it?
Some sort of a barcarolle, I would say.
Not really, no.
Oh, it's set slightly. Wouldn't you say?
Not really, no. It was The Miner's Dream of Home was the next one. Which I wouldn't exactly call a barcarolle.
Well, yes, it was played once by Eric Barker.
In a boat, yes.
More roll than bar.
Then came a classical piece. What was that?
Where were you?
He wasn't the da dum bum bum ba da dum bum.
That's how it went, yes.
That's a Schubert sonata.
No, it's the Fifth Symphony again that I played over. It's exactly the same. I played it to the other side.
Half a mark for Schubert.
No, you're playing for half marks anyway, so that won't do, I'm afraid. Sorry. There were 3 more tunes.
What?
Really?
Yes.
Well, there was a French chanson.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got French chanson because you said to me, I think that's a French chanson. So I wrote it down. It's a French chanson.
It was Under the Bridges of Paris, actually.
Well, you can't get more French than that.
No, you can't, can you?
And you can chance it.
2 more. Get them?
Valse des Fleurs.
No, it was a Sleeping Beauty waltz by the same man, actually. And finally...
Nutcracker again. Well, that's my 6th.
Well, don't get it, do you? You know what it is, Dennis, don't you?
Let's all sing.
Let's all sing like the birdies sing. History has been made, no marks at all. Medley for John and Frank.
You gave me your Schubert.
No.
You are a broken reed, aren't you, John, really?
So leading at the moment by 2 marks, Ian Wallace and Denis Norden.
Well, we can't go any worse. From now on, it's up.
Right.
It can only go up.
The road winds downhill all the way for you now. And we move on to opera. That branch of music to which Ian has devoted so much of his life. Whether enough of his life, we shall now discover, of course. Ian, which opera opens like this? Strange sounds, Ian.
Yes, I think there's somebody on the stage wearing a bolero at that time, actually.
Yes, that's a clever remark, yes.
Because this is an opera by Ravel.
Ravel, yes, of bolero fame. His musical play in 1 act, as they call it.
L'heure espagnole.
L'heure espagnole gets you a mark. Denis, what do you imagine might be happening at this point in the opera?
À tout à l'heure. Enfin, il part. Dieu, ces muletiers sont de fâcheux bavards. Coucou, amusons cette belle. Coucou.
Tiens, l'horloge.
Tiens, l'horloge. Shut up, clock. Dennis, what do you think might be happening at that point?
Yeah, I got à tout à l'heure.
Yes.
Tiens, l'horloge, is it?
L'horloge, yes.
What could be happening? Well, there's something happening with clocks. I think it sounded like somebody was trying to play a trombone inside one of those stand-up, what do they call them, those stand-up
Grandfather
clocks? Grandfather clocks. Or else he had a clock in the bath at some time. He had a clock horizontal in the bath, and he kept going underwater and going,
It's more like N.F. Simpson than Ravel, really, isn't it? Well, I think you have a mark for ingenuity. It's a comedy, actually, L'Heure Espagnole, with people hiding in grandfather clocks, notably a banker whose mistress is the clockmaker's wife. It's that sort of a story. So Denis has a mark, Ravel has one too, and John Amos, we move over to you. In the cast list, in the score, it lists the respective singers as soprano, tenor, baritone, basse bouffe, and trial. Trial. What is the origin of that word trial?
It's so funny you should mention this, because I've been staying recently with a friend in Florence, and we came across an opera by Bizet. And there's the baritone part is marked trial. And I said to my friend, do you know the origin of that word?
This
he
is
said,
pure
no,
coincidence.
I don't. But
Now
so
you
the
do.
whole thing is a bit of a trial. But I would guess that it's possibly the name of a man who took comic acting parts in an opera, and perhaps his name was Trial, and so the species became known as Trial.
One mark to John Amos. Antoine Trial, 1736 to 95. Traditional opera comique expression for a tenor of dramatic rather than vocal expertise. John, you deserve your applause.
It became actually a term of something of an insult. In this opera by Bizet called Jamillet, the man who was the baritone found out that Bizet had put him down as Trial and was so angry that he tried to get Bizet to change it to baritone.
You wouldn't want to be called a Trial, Ian, would you?
I
And when
don't mind what
Bizet
I'm
said,
called as long as I'm working.
I'm determined to get this in.
Tell us about that.
When Bizet wouldn't, this baritone went round to the printers and got hold of the plates and changed it himself.
The lengths they'll go to. Frank, it's your turn. In the finale of L'Heure Espagnole, the quintet of characters sings about the moral of Boccaccio. Can you tell or guess from the music what the moral is? Listen. What is the moral?
Never put a hot quintet on a cold slab.
Or,
chaque chien a son journée. Every dog has his... Why do you think that Boccaccio had a moral? The curious attribution, isn't it?
Yes, it's of all people.
Every dog has
morals.
his day, my friend suggests.
That's very nicely put.
He was in Florence, and this chap said that... you get this question.
I quote in English, among lovers, the one who is efficient succeeds. There comes a moment in the pursuit of love when the muleteer gets his turn. Which is another way of saying every dog has his day.
Well, a bit devious.
Yeah. Devious, but it'll serve.
But you see, you've got to unravel it.
You may remember that William Byrd once said, since singing is so good a thing, I wish all men would learn to sing. The operative word is learn to sing. So we come to our own singing. Dennis first.
Why are you looking at Dennis when you said that?
Well, because he's first, you see. Then comes John, and then Frank, and then Ian in our time-hallowed order. Dennis, then, you first. You'll get all my attention, your wish will be my rule. Can you carry on from there for 2 marks and a good conduct star?
And maybe you'll be good to me and keep me after school. An apple for the teacher, that's how I'd better start. And after a while she may give in and let me bring my heart.
Very good.
Mock as you will Dennis's singing voice, which doesn't exist. I bet there aren't 3 people in this filled hall who could have sung those lyrics right through.
No, that's
not
true.
Could sing those lyrics.
Well, for money you'd do anything.
Well, there you are, see. That's 2 marks, 2 good brave marks to Dennis. John. Oh, dolce bacio languidi carezze.
Or that lyric, for that matter.
Can you translate into song, please, if I give you a nice loud F in the bass? Here we go.
Oh, dolce bacio languide carezze, mentre io fremente la bella forma di Siena ed Aveli. Shall I go on?
No. Very nice 2 marks worth there of Lucio van der Stelle.
What a Harry Seacombe was lost.
You think so?
Frank, it's your turn. What happens to bachelors who are gay? Well, shall I give you a chord?
Which one of those notes do I have? I think you
start.
I think I don't work with chords, but bits of string.
You start, and I'll find you.
At 17, he falls in love quite madly with eyes of tender blue. At 34, he falls in love once more, but with eyes of a different hue. At 91, you find him flirting sadly with 2 or 3 or more. But it's when he knows he's past love, it is then he finds his lost love and nothing.
Well, that'll do nicely for your 2 marks. Ian, the verse of the song I have in mind for you begins gazing down on the Jungfrau, which is not easy to do. How does the chorus go? And I'll give you a key. Here we go.
Wunderbar, wunderbar, what a perfect night for love. Here I am, here you are. Why, it's truly wunderbar, wunderbar, wunderbar. We're alone and hand in glove, not a cloud near or far. Why, it's more than wunderbar. Oh, I care, dear, for you madly, and I long, dear, for your kiss. I would die, dear, for you gladly. You're divine it is, and you're mine, dear. Wunderbar, wunderbar. There's our favorite star above. What a bright, shining star. Like our love, it's wunderbar.
Wunderbar we may not be, but grateful we are to you for listening. This time a victory by 1 mark for Ian Wallace and Denis Norden. Goodbye.
Taking part in My Music were John Amos, Frank Muir, Denis Norden, and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the program was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.
We present My Music, a musical panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here to introduce the teams is Steve Race.
Thank you very much. Thank you. How nice to be with you again for another edition of My Music, the panel game in which the contestants' erudition is only matched by the chairman's impartiality. Those contestants being, as ever, of course, Ian Wallace and Denis Norden versus John Amos and Frank Muir. And a simple question to each of you in this first round, and the answer is worth a mark. Ian, why should this music make me think of the Rhone Valley?
Well, Steve, it may make you think of the Rhone Valley. It makes me think of something quite different, because unwittingly you have quoted there a piece of music that, for me, is particularly nostalgic, because that was the signature tune of, so far, the only television series that I ever wrote and presented in front of a camera. It was a series on opera, although that's not an operatic piece of music, which I did in Scotland. A great many programs about opera, and we had that as our signature tune.
Why? Because it's not operatic, is it?
It's not operatic, but our producer found it, and it somehow seemed a jolly nice bit of music to start the program. And even just now, when I heard it, my heart started to beat faster, remembering particularly the first program. The first time you go into a television studio, and not only are you going to take part in the thing, but you've written it, and if the thing's a flop, you are going to be entirely blamed, and that's going to be that. And I know why it reminds you of the Rhone Valley, because it's from Bizet's La Lisienne suite, which was incidental music for a play about Arles.
The girl from Arles, yes, that's right. But, I still think it's a weird choice for an opera program.
Yes, I suppose it was, really.
It's like, you remember Andre Previn has a story that he was sent for by a Hollywood producer in his younger days, and this producer said, I want you to write the music for this film about crime in the 48th precinct of New York City, and I don't care what you write, but I want you to use Tolito Lindo as the music. And Previn said, why? He said, because it's my favourite tune, that's why.
Well, I dare say it was my producer's favourite tune.
Well, there you are. Yeah. A mark to you, Ian. Denis Norden, who is this singer?
My partner, it's dancing time. The clock says 10. Won't you say when? I'm ready, go steady. When we begin, the time is right. I think we might.
That's my time.
Yes, that's him.
I presume that the point of this apart from not daring to expose me to opera of any kind, you want to make the pun between the Rhone Valley and the Rudy Valley.
I hadn't thought of it, actually. It takes a professional writer to come up with that.
Well, Rudy Valley.
Rudy
that was
Valley.
his signature tune for many years, called My Time Is Your Time.
Yes, sung, I always like to think, through a megaphone.
Yeah.
Yes. Recorded in 1929, that record, though adopted, I think, since by a recording engineer. Mark to Dennis. John Amos, a singer for you of two musical worlds. Who was he?
None but the lonely heart can know my sadness, alone and parted far from joy and gladness.
John. Recognize him?
I think that's Ezio Pinza.
Yes. His original name was Ezio Fortunatio. And
Bene.
indeed he was. Because he was chosen by Bruno Walter for Don Giovanni and by Rodgers and Hammerstein for South Pacific. And that's what I meant by two musical worlds. Pinza it was.
You know he started his adult life as a racing cyclist?
No. Really, that's where the wind, that's good wind training
Well,
for
I
a
think
singer,
so.
isn't it?
One of the greatest singers. Super.
Yeah, it's a voice of real character, of course, which is
marvellous.
part of the battle anyway, isn't it? Yeah. A mark to John Amos for Pincer there. Frank Muir, a thoughtful piece for you. What does it come from?
It's Meditations on Thighs.
Give or take, yes. Well, yes. Or meditation from Thais, as we dullards call it.
Massenet.
Yes, comes from Massenet's Thais. It's a story I'm interested to discover about a courtesan who becomes a nun, and it's set in 4th century Egypt. Don't quite know what nuns were doing then in the 4th century. A story by Anatole France. Anyway, you got it from Frank the Mark.
Well, they were there.
Meditation from Thais. Some quotations about music and general musical matters. Ian, Sir Thomas Beecham remarked once, "So far as the public is concerned, there are only 2 requisites for a good performance." What were those 2 requisites?
I think probably in his day, he would have sought the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra and himself.
Very tempted to give you the marks because he would have thought that, wouldn't he? I should have thought that.
The only other thought that occurs to me is the remark that's attributed, I think, to Edison, where he said that genius is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration.
Yes. Actually, Beecham was talking about something to do with the performance of the orchestra when he said there are only 2 requisites for a good performance, something about the actual playing. I think perhaps I can give you 1 out of 2. I don't quite know why.
No, I don't think I don't.
He said the 2 requisites for a good performance were that the orchestra should begin together and end together. And he added anything in between doesn't matter much to the orchestra.
There's one of the lesser known, I think, Beecham stories was when he went with the violinist Jean Punier to appear with an amateur orchestra somewhere in the country. They had engaged Sir Thomas and Jean Punier to go and do this performance, and the amateur orchestra were so overawed by the occasion that the start of it was highly disastrous. But Sir Thomas kept going in his imperturbable way, just beating away, and after a while they sort of all settled down a bit. And still conducting, he leaned over to Jean Punier in the leader's desk and said,
Don't look now, Mr. Punier, but I believe we're being followed.
Very nice. Dennis, back to the quotes. Who led a lousy rabble of low degree?
Lousy rabble of low degree. This is one of Ian's songs, this is. And to hell with Burgundy.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Onward the lily banners go.
That's right.
The Vagabond King.
Yes.
François Villon.
François Villon, yes, in the verse of the Song of the Vagabond, yes. John Amos, what musical premiere, notable musical premiere, took place with the assistance of Eric Crozier at the Empire Cinema, Leicester Square, on November the 26th, 1946. Premiere. Eric Crozier was a part writer.
Well, Eric Crozier is very much associated with Benjamin Britten, correct? Empire Cinema.
But they wouldn't premiere an opera at the Empire Leicester Square, would they?
No, that's very true. Perhaps it was a film.
Yes, that's right. A documentary film.
Looks.
Got it.
Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra.
That's right, yes. It was the first performance of the documentary film that included Britten's and Eric Crozier's Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. The commentary, of course, by Eric Crozier. You just made your 2 marks there. Frank, what was said to be the very first thing that Napoleon did on entering Vienna in 1805?
The second thing he did.
It's been a long wait.
Yes, was call for deux café and deux chocolate cakes. Doesn't seem to satisfy you, does it?
Not entirely. Not entirely.
You look glum.
No, I'm looking glum. That's right. Looking a bit
Are you
wrong.
Unhappy, Steve?
Yes. Does John know? It's rather nice, actually. It doesn't
Let's
fit
not
in.
forget that Beethoven was alive then.
Oh, that
Haydn was still dying about. Haydn.
He went into Haydn.
We won't be helped.
He said, "Take me to Papa Haydn's house," and he clapped the old composer on the head and said, "Sir, no, that's the other one, Monsieur." Yes,
it's so nearly right. I think you ought to have 2 marks.
3.
Said to be the very first thing that Napoleon did on entering Vienna in 1805 was to have a guard placed on the home of Haydn. Says somebody in the audience. It's rather nice.
Was Haydn at home at the time?
Yes, I hope so, yes. And on to the next round, and to some music written in our own time by one of our own composers. Snatch of music by a British composer, Alan Langford, depicting in variation form certain colours. They're called, in fact, his colour variations. The question, of course, is which colour? How near can you get to the composer's mind? Ian, you first. What colour would you say this music is? Ian.
Orange.
Yes, I think that's all good enough, really. He said active yellow is the composer's name for it. So yellow, I think, yellow's near enough to orange, isn't it? That's right, all right.
That was if ever there was a bow drawn at a venture.
Well, there you are. An orange bow gets you a yellow mark. 1 mark to you. Denis Norden, what's the colour here?
Well, it's a bit easy. We've had our bathroom done in that. It's either it could be kind of rather sultry flesh tones, but I rather gather it's blues.
Yes,
of some kind.
That's right. Yes, well, 1 mark to you. He calls it blue cool. John, this is where I part company from Alan Langford because I just don't see the colour connection here. I wonder how you'll get on.
of your own pieces, Mr.
No,
Rhodes?
they're all by this chap, Alan Langford. No,
All
it's
by
not
this
mine.
chap?
They're all by Alan Langford, yes. What colour would that be?
I think it's the sort of piece you might find in the Yellow Pages.
It's not bad, actually. I think that's all right. In fact, it's got to be all right, because it's the reverse of Alan's answer. You say yellow, the composer called it orange for industry. So, fair enough. Yellow Pages it is. 1 mark to you. And for Frank, a bit of a mixture, Frank, for you. What does that suggest in the way of colour?
Composing a colour is rather like whistling a tree.
Yeah.
What tree am I whistling? It's a revolting pair of pyjamas.
Yes, I think that's about right. He called it piebald comedy. I think a revolting pair of pyjamas would do very nicely.
What is the name? There is a word when you try to express one art form in terms of another art form. Is it, John, is the sort of thing John would do in a lecture?
You don't mean the pathetic fallacy?
No.
Attributing...
Is it, the listeners will know, is it synesthesia? It's something like that. Where
would you ask listeners to write to you, not to me, please, with the answer?
The pathetic fallacy is that Denis and I know anything about music.
Actually, depicting colours in music is not new. A great many very good composers listed it, after all, in a colour symphony. And that particular composer I was mentioning, Alan Langford, he is here in the audience. You ask him to show his true colours and take a bow. Alan, come on. You'll never forgive me for that.
If it's commissioned, if somebody commissioned it and you commissioned colours, and you do that whole thing of saying, would you do me a blue? And Alan writes, or no, I really wanted it slightly more mauvey.
Yes. Oh, well. We move on to a round which is rather more literary. These are some sayings about music. Ian, who wrote, "Give me books, fruit, French wine, fine weather, and a little music out of doors played by somebody I do not know"? I'll give you a clue. He didn't write those words on a Grecian urn. You still don't know.
Would have been a comparatively near neighbour of mine if we'd lived at the same time.
That's right, Hampstead.
John Keats.
Keats, that's right. He wrote it in a letter in 1819. That's a mark to you. Dennis, who wrote, "Music and women I cannot but give way to, whatever my business is"?
Don't know.
He wrote it in 1666 in his diary, folks.
Oh, well, that's...
Evelyn, you're going to say, aren't you?
Well, Pepys, I think.
Samuel Pepys, yes. I think half a mark's enough there out of one, but you really didn't know, did you? John, who wrote, "Hell is full of musical amateurs"?
Oh, and aren't the next words something about music is the brandy of the damned?
Mm-hmm. Come along then, the name.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Corno
di Bassetto.
Yes, that's right. Otherwise known as
George Bernard
Shaw. He wrote it in Man and Superman, yes. Hell is full of musical amateurs. Frank, in a past programme, you quoted Dr. Johnson's line about music being the only sensual pleasure without vice. Who similarly, and later, called music the only cheap and unpunished rapture upon earth?
It's the marvellous Reverend Sidney Smith.
That's right, in 1844. The year before he died, so he was permitted to redraft Dr. Johnson's bon mots, I think, by then. A mark to you. And time for some splendid singing. Not the final round yet. Another one to go. Ian, you have the pleasure of telling us for half a mark each name the song, the composer, the singer, and the accompanist, who must of course be Gerald Moore, or I wouldn't be asking you, would I? So, song, composer, singer, accompanist.
In einem nächtlichen Hände, da schoss im Überall die launische Forelle vorüber wie ein Pfeil. Ich stand an dem Stade und sein großer Rot, es muntert mich
Pick up 2 marks.
The accompanist is Gerald Moore.
How right you are, yes.
The song is by Schubert.
Yes.
Di Forelle,
yes.
The trout.
Yes.
This rotten man, fisherman who goes along and muddies the water so that the wretched trout doesn't see what's being done to it. And the singer, I think, is Elizabeth Schwarzkopf.
Mrs. Legg. Yes, Schwarzkopf it is. And that's 4 half marks equals 2. Dennis, here's another song from that superb singer. For your 2 marks, what is the song about? It's an interesting test, I think, both of you and, come to think of it, of the composer. What is the song about?
I'm afraid the composer failed that test. It's a shame. Never mind, you can't win them all.
What colour do you think it was, Dennis?
The solution was in the accompaniment, actually.
Water. Well, so it sounded, that's what I was thinking of, water going over a lot of stones, a fast-running water going over a lot of stones.
Well, you're getting a little warm in a sense. It's actually a song, it's called Mandoline. It's a song about a mandolin player. The mandolin chatters away amid the shivering of the breeze. But I don't
think that's warm? Yeah?
Well, I just think sort of chattering away. No, I don't think it's warm. It's no marks, isn't it? Poem by Verlaine.
Verlaine, who wrote I'm Always Chasing Rambo.
John, who wrote this and roughly when?
Du meine Seele, du mein Herz, du meine Freude, du mein Schmerz, du meine Welt, in der ich lebe, mein Himmel war du, worein ich lebe, du mein Grab, in das hinauf ich gehe, durch meine
John, whose is it?
It's by Schumann.
Yes. And when did he write it, would you say? The year or his age, if you'd prefer?
1834.
I think it's near enough. 1840, when he was 30 years old. That gets you 2 marks, I think, without any question. And the title of the song was?
Du meine Seele. Let's cut up on, what is it called?
Starts mit der Ruhe.
Songs without titles.
Widmung, never mind. Frank, all these lovely songs we're hearing by Elizabeth Schwarzkopf. Wouldn't it be nice if you could spell her? For 2 marks.
Schwarzkopf.
Oh, he's done it. And on to the last round, in which this week all the songs are about races or race. Ever since I was 5 years old, people have been making puns about my name, calling me the human race, and expecting me to fall about laughing as they do. So, Dennis, I hear the human race is falling on its face and hasn't very far to go, but every whippoorwill is selling me a bill and telling me it just ain't so. Can you continue with the song?
I could say life is just a bowl of jello and appear more intelligent and smart. But I'm stuck like a dope with a thing called hope, and I can't get it out of my heart. That's as far as I go.
That's as far as you need to go for 2 crisp marks. That was lovely. Rather.
It's a song that I heard of somebody refer to as a cockeyed oculist.
Yes.
A cockeyed optimist.
Yes, from South Pacific, yeah. John, race in a different sense for you, or rather from you. An Indian song, please. An Indian chanson, even.
Oh, yes.
I'll give you a chord. Maybe. You got the words right as well. I think I'm going to knock off a mark. You didn't give us any words. You favoured us with the tune only.
He was doing the Tommy Dorsey version. Yeah.
Do you want it in Russian?
Yes. I don't believe a word of it. Only 1 out of 2. You can spare it. I can see the scoreboard.
That wasn't Russian. That was Little Russian.
Very little
I can do
Russian.
it in Serbo-Croat.
Good.
Frank, you seem to be rather well up, I've noticed, on the old music hall songs. Can you recall one about a donkey race? Donkey race.
Ah, yes. Hang on. Does it go down or up? Down. Down the road, the way went Molly was very jolly, I knew she'd win. Down the road, the pace was killing, but the mare was waiting for a likely spin. Oh, the race well left and might as well have never been born. Whoa, mare! Whoa, mare! You made your little bit of corn.
Which gets 2 marks and leaves Ian. The race, in your case, Ian, is one with an iron, a smoothing iron. I think in the key of F for you.
No, I think we better... this could go on a very long time, this one. I think we better assume that she goes to the laundrette and she's got a spin dryer and a very hot plate, and we'll get it all over starting with Saturday. 'Twas on a Saturday morning when I beheld me darling. She looked so neat and charming in every high degree. She looked so neat and nimble, oh, a-washing off her linen, oh, dashing away with a smoothing iron, dashing away with a smoothing iron. She stole me heart away. 'Twas on a Sunday morning that I beheld me darling. She looked so neat and charming in every high degree. She looked so neat and nimble, oh, a-wearing of her linen, oh, dashing away with a smoothing iron, dashing away with a smoothing iron. She stole my heart away.
Time for us all to be dashing away, I'm afraid. A victory, though, this week by 1.5 marks for John Amis and Frank Muir. Goodbye.
Taking part in My Music were John Amis, Frank Muir, Ian Wallace and Denis Norden. The chairman was Steve Race. The questions were compiled by Steve Race, and the program was produced by Tony Schreier. We present My Music, a musical panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here to introduce the teams is Steve Race.
Once again, it's My Music and the Fearful Foursome. In other words, Ian Wallace and Denis Norden competing in musical knowledge against John Amis and Frank Muir. Everything, they tell us, must have a beginning and an end. In this first round, we hear some beginnings and endings. The question is, though, what comes in between? Ian Wallace, you first. What begins like this? and ends like this. Ian.
Well, I don't think it's the Messiah.
But you're warm.
But I would have thought it was probably Mr. Handel.
Yes.
The fireworks.
Yes. Handel's music for the Royal Fireworks, first heard in 1749 in Green Park in London. Of course, everything went wrong, as you probably remember, Ian, and they set fire to the whole of the park. I mean, as you remember from broadcast you've given on this sort of subject.
No, I don't remember that, but I do remember there was a terrible jam on the escalator at Green Park Station after.
Dennis, what begins like this?
I feel like I'm not out of bed yet.
And ends like this.
Well, I think anybody who's keen on film musicals will remember that opening shot of On the Town, that wonderful long shot where you pick out the dock worker who's wearing a kind of red hat singing I Feel Like I'm Not Out of Bed Yet.
Yes.
And then it finishes with the fresh lot of sailors coming up the ship and singing New York, New York, it's a wonderful town.
It's a hell of a town, the last line we heard there. Leonard Bernstein's music for On the Town. That was the part of the original London cast recording. 1 mark to Dennis. John Amos, what begins like this? And ends like this.
It's the Fourth Symphony of Johannes Brahms.
Which movement? Well, it's a fair enough question, because the Fourth Symphony doesn't begin like that.
Oh, I beg your pardon, no, it's the last movement.
No, last movement, yes.
I thought it was going to be one of those questions like, take Wagner, how old was he?
No, you're right. The last movement of Brahms' Fourth Symphony, mark to you. Frank Muir, your turn. What begins like this? And ends like this.
The first was a coronation, where a page stepped on the train. And the last one was either a rapidly closed train window of Brief Encounter.
Good, it's a good guess, but it wasn't.
Or was the slap of a guillotine?
No, not a guillotine, but along those lines. It was an axe.
An axe?
Mm. There was a slight clue for you. At the beginning we had some typical period film music, and then laughter. There was some laughter in the first scene, and I remember quite distinctly this film beginning with a sort of party atmosphere before the host was summoned to see his monarch.
Who got chopped on?
Begins in Chelsea, ends further downriver.
Sir Thomas More.
Yes, and the film title...
A Man of All Seasons.
A Man for All Seasons.
Oh, Four Seasons, is it?
Very difficult tonight. I helped you, but I think he got it, don't you, for a mark? Yes, he got it for a mark. Robert Bolt's A Man for All Seasons. One of the greatest of all lyric writers in the popular song field is Johnny Mercer. Think of Laura, Blues in the Night, Moon River, that old Black Magic, marvellous songs. He seems to be able to incorporate any word and find any rhyme for it if it's necessary. These questions are all based on Johnny Mercer's songs. Ian, you first. How did Johnny Mercer work in a reference in the song to Webster's Dictionary?
Oh. I look to my partner for help here.
You're just too much. You're just too very, very to ever be in Webster's Dictionary.
Or like the road film.
No,
He didn't write that.
It's not Johnny Mercer, no. That was Van Heusen and Burke. Like Webster's Dictionary, we're Morocco bound.
Oh, yes, just too marvellous.
No, Ian's question, but
shirts.
His partner Denis got it, and that's the answer. In fact, this is how Ella Fitzgerald sings that bit.
Too much, and just too very, too every in Webster's Dictionary.
She sings it well, too.
Yes. She does it quite well.
No better than you, Dennis. You gave a marvellous and casual interpretation of it there.
Dennis, your turn. How did Johnny Mercer work Aurora Borealis into a song? Aurora Borealis or Alice.
Your lips are like a red and ruby chalice.
That's right.
Your lips are like a red and ruby
Dennis, shall I give you the mark and then we'll hear Ella sing it?
Yeah.
Mark to you.
It's called, wait a minute, I just got it, red and ruby chalice, and the clouds are like an alabaster. It's called The Midnight Sun. I could see the Midnight
Music by
Sun.
Lionel Hampton, Midnight Sun. Here's Ella demonstrating those lines.
Your lips were like a red and ruby chalice, warmer than the summer night. The clouds were like an alabaster palace, rising to a snowy each star its own aurora borealis. Suddenly you held me tight.
Yes.
And I could see
the Midnight Sun, yes. John Amos, what rhymes with kindergarten in a Johnny Mercer lyric? Kindergarten. Frank may be able to help.
Kindergarten?
No. No. It's in the song, You Must Have Been a Beautiful Baby.
Must be a beautiful baby. Must be a beautiful baby.
When
you were only starting.
That's it. Yes, when you were only starting to go to kindergarten, I bet you drove the other kids wild. Half a mark out of one, because I had to give you the title there. Frank, your turn. Can you give the Mercer rhyme for underwater life?
Underwater life? Fecunda sort of wife.
Even he was not capable of that. He did it in a song called Spring, Spring, Spring.
The beehives are buzzing. A budding son and daughter life.
That's it, you've got it. Yes, it's a beehive of budding son and daughter life. Every family has plans in view. Even down in the brook, the underwater life is forever blowing bubbles too.
I must say that
you've got a half
line, it's a beehive of budding son and daughter life doesn't stand on its own.
No, it's just faintly contrived.
It's a prelude, but it's not the fugue.
No, that's true enough. And of course, Johnny Mercer knows something any lyric writer knows. If you have a slightly dubious rhyme, you put it first, and then the good one later, don't you? On to the next round. Some time ago in this series, I mentioned my close friendship with the pianist Rubinstein, Horace Rubinstein, who plays favourite items on the piano, but always seems to get them just slightly wrong. So, Ian, what would you say is wrong with Horace's interpretation of the most famous of Tchaikovsky's piano concertos? Listen. Need I play more?
Not really, no. A tendency to not lift the hands up having got to the bottom of the phrase, but then climbed all the way back up again.
Yes, da-da-da-dum. Yes, that's true enough. Mark to you. Dennis, my friend Horace was glad to welcome the revival in the popularity of Scott Joplin, but he made a slight error in Joplin's most famous composition. Can you detect the error?
Too fast.
He's sort of taken the itch out of the sting in a strange way. I can't put you mustn't put your finger on it. It doesn't get better.
I can't give you the mark. It should have been instead of a B instead of a C.
Very good.
John Amos. Horace Rubinstein's Moonlight Sonata received acclaim. It was actually acclaim from the Beethoven Protection Society. This is how Horace played his Moonlight Sonata. It's not easy to do. Well, it sounds rather nice, actually, like that.
Yes.
Where did he go wrong?
As Michael Flanders might say in one of his songs, it ought to please any passing sloth, because he's playing it upside down.
An Antipodean version. Yes, it should have been da-da-dum instead of da-da-dum. That's right. The triplets were inverted. Frank Muir. In his lighter moments, Horace Rubinstein was greatly addicted to the melodies of Ivor Novello. This was his version of Someday My Heart Will Awake. What was it that went wrong?
It's dum pum 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 pum. Come in, Ginger.
Dan Busters. Yes, Dan Busters March. That's right. If a motorist has a car registration number of which he's particularly fond, gentlemen, he can have it transferred to a new car on payment of a modest fee. The car license people call them cherished numbers. I know that Petula Clark, Pet Clark, has, or maybe had, the registration PET1, Pet 1. All of which leads me to ask if you can think of a suitable cherished number for a musician to have, be he singer, composer, instrumentalist, or whatever. The letter I, of course, can count as 1 or 0 as O. It's up to you. Ian, you're the sufferer because you're first. Any ideas? A cherished number for a musical person.
You could imagine some very lively conductor like Antal Dorati, or a very lively composer like Rossini, on the basis that the letter 1 could also stand for ace, and you would have VIV1, which could stand for Vivace.
Vivace. Oh, that's clever. Oh, I like it.
Yes, but the trouble is, nobody looking at it on the road, they would just say that's Viv1.
Very nice, though. I get you a mark, I think, certainly. Dennis, you had a little longer to think about it.
I did. Actually, I just thought of one on the basis of Ian's, because if that same lively conductor didn't bother to look at the music at all, didn't even bother to take it with him, he could have a number NO20, which is no score.
Oh, yeah.
No,
yes. That would be for Beecham, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the one I had, two. One was for Johann Strauss, who could have a very simple number, just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And Vincent Youmans and Irving Caesar could have a very short number plate. What would that be, Steve?
Oh, Youmans and Caesar? I can't think.
They were quite T42.
Oh, of course. Oh, lovely, yes. I should have thought of that, shouldn't I? Yes. T42, that's lovely. John Amos, what's in your mind on this subject?
Well, any good musician would adore the works of Mozart. And the works of Mozart don't go in opus numbers, but in K numbers, standing for Kirchner, the man who catalogued them. Therefore, if you were dishing one out to Yehudi Menuhin, say, you'd give him one of the violin concertos, K219.
Yes.
Was a pianist, you'd give him K488, perhaps, the A major. And if it perhaps was a musician that you didn't really like quite so much, you might give him K620, which is Mozart's Requiem.
Good idea, those Ks, yes. True enough. Frank, any ideas?
Yes, for Yehudi Menuhin, I would have thought V10L1N.
Oh, yeah. V-I-O-I-N, lovely, yes.
But, yes. Or if there's a member of the London Philharmonic touring France, the wind section, he might have C0RGB.
Yes.
You got that,
Very nice.
Core Anglais.
Yes, they do.
Yes. One for you, Steve.
Oh, no.
What about if on the back of the bus, the number plate was BAT0N? Yes. It means there's a conductor.
Yes. Yes.
Another one for you, Steve.
Oh, yes, right.
Can you see any reason why Wagner could have the number 9W?
9W? No, I was thinking of R1NG, but 9W, what's that?
That's in case anybody says, do you spell your name with a V?
Fair enough. 9W. You all got a mark in that round, why not? It's time we turned our attention to opera. Ian, cast your mind back to 1951. On December the 1st that year, there was an important premiere at the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden. The first performance of a very open-air kind of opera. Ian, what was the opera and where does its action take place?
This is Billy Budd.
Yes, that's right. And where does the action take place? And don't say at sea.
I was just about to say, in a ship.
Could you hazard the name?
Indomitable.
Indomitable. That's good for you. HMS Indomitable during the French Wars of 1797. 2 marks to Ian Wallace. Benjamin Britten's Billy Budd, first performance. Dennis, apart from Britain's usual librettist, 2 famous literary people had a hand in the story and the libretto. Can you name them? A mark each. Billy Budd.
No, I can name one, obviously, because Billy Budd was originally a short novel by Herman Melville.
Yes, the Moby Dick Man.
But I don't know what other famous...
One mark.
Wait a minute, don't give up the ship, as we say in Billy Budd.
Least of all, don't give up the ship on a passage to India.
Oh, is it? Oh, then that's the chap that they always... The real literary people always call Morgan Forster. But
Yes.
I've always called E.M. Forster.
E.M. to you, Forster, that's right. Yes, E.M. Forster wrote the libretto, additional work on it by Britain's usual collaborator, Eric Crozier. I gave you a hint, a fairly sizable one, so I think 1.5 out of 2.
Well, I had actually written down Eric Crozier, but when you mentioned Forster, I crossed it.
Yes. No, I did say at the beginning of my question, apart from Britain's usual librettist.
Someone told me a sweet story about a little man who arrived in the Heifer's bookshop in Cambridge, wearing bicycle clips and Norfolk jacket and so on, with a complete set of the works of E.M. Forster, signed by the author. So they were quite pleased and they bought them. And about a month later, the same little man turned up with another set of complete works of E.M. Forster, and it was some time before they twigged who it was.
Charles story. It's your turn now, John. This is the voice of Peter Pears from the very end of the opera. John, what's the name of the character? He gives it in full a
And
moment
I,
later.
Captain Edward Fairfax Vere.
That's his name. You did it in your own voice. You usually do Peter Pear's voice, don't you? Can we have it in Pear's language, please?
Billy Bob, Fort Hotman.
The parrot on the shoulder. Yes, why not? Captain Edward Fairfax Vere is the answer that gets you your marks. Frank, what was it in particular that Billy Budd had in common with Mr. Ernest Worthing in Another Tale?
Was Billy Budd born in a ditty box?
Very nearly. Very nearly. They were both. What's the word?
Born in a skip or a basket.
No.
They were both basketball.
They were both, as you were about to say, they were both foundlings.
Yes.
Found? Says Lady Bracknell.
Foundling.
I think you get the marks, and I'll explain you it. This is the moment in the opera when Billy Budd himself mentions the fact.
Don't you worry. Foundling. That's the word. Foundling. I'm a foundling. Found in a basket tied to a good man's door. The poor old man.
You are, as he says, found in a basket tied to a good man's door, the poor old man. So, having disposed of able seaman Budd, we move on to the final round, the music concerning, in this case, other members of the armed forces. I'll be asking Ian Wallace to round things off with a song about a circumnavigator and his percussion instrument. There's something for you to be thinking out, Ian, while I turn to Denis Norden and ask him to reply first in song. Dennis, Mr. Brown goes to town on the 8:21. But what does he do at the end of the day?
But he comes back every evening and he's ready with his gun. Do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler, when you think old England's done?
Yes, why not? 2 marks. John, can you give us the song of the vagabond Yankee stationed in Butterfliesville?
Yes. Would you like to give me a chord or something?
Yeah, I'll give you how about that?
The whole world over, on business or on pleasure, the Yankee travels, scorning all danger. He drops his anchor just where I can't remember.
But I do know that the next line is one of the best in all Puccini operas, which is in the Italian, milk punch or whiskey.
You usually
the singers try and sort of get rid of so they don't get a titter going round the audience.
You usually snobbishly give us these things in the original language. Why not in this case?
Well, with Butterfly, I always think of a certain singer who was at Covent Garden in the late 40s and early 50s, a marvellous singer called Walter Midgley, a Yorkshire singer. And he had a very individual way of singing. And he also did one thing in opera which was quite unique. I saw him, I was sitting there, and he was singing the Duke in Rigoletto. And all of a sudden he took a big deep breath and swallowed his moustache.
I've suddenly realized that if I swallowed my moustache, I'd turn myself inside out.
Frank, it's your turn. Remembering, as I said, that all these songs are something to do with members of the armed forces. What seems to suit the ladies best?
Oh, a military chef seems to suit the ladies best. There's something about the soldier. There's something about the soldier. There's something about the soldier that is fine, fine, fine.
Yes, indeed, yes. Cicely Muir, that one. Yeah. And 2 marks to you. Right, Ian, I turn to my piano. Art thou sleeping there below? You ready with your song? Let's have a go.
Verse 2, perhaps, might be the one to do.
Drake, he was a Devon man and ruled the Devon seas. Captain are sleeping there below. Brooding though his death fell, he went with heart at ease, and dreaming all the time of Plymouth Hoe. Take my drum to England, hang it by the shore, strike it when your powder's running low. If the dawn sight Devon, I'll quit the port of heaven, and drum them up the channel as we drummed them long ago.
Lovely from you, unrehearsed from me. Time for us to hit the hammock. Me to tell you that in this edition of My Music, we have a victory by a mere half a mark for John Amis and Frank Muir. Goodbye.
Taking part in My Music were John Amis, Frank Muir, Ian Wallace, and Denis Norden. The chairman was Steve Race. The questions were compiled by Steve Race, and the program was produced by Tony Schreier.
The BBC presents My Music, a radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the teams.
Thank you very much. And hello again. Here in our customary My Music studio, which happens to be the Commonwealth Institute in London, the cast remains unchanged. Ian Wallace and Denis Norden in competition against John Amis and Frank Muir. A little identification, as usual, to start things off. Ian Wallace, title and composer, please. Ian, I thought that went round in a rather capricious sort of way. What was it called?
Don't give him a hint.
No, I won't give him a hint. No, I wouldn't do that.
Well, thank goodness you did give me a hint, because otherwise... But apart from being one of those bits of music that is extremely familiar, you got a laugh from the audience. This is almost like 20 questions. You got a laugh from the audience on the word capricious, I noticed. So it's obviously something capricious is in the title.
Yes.
Oh, well, I got it, actually, from that hint, because he also said round.
Yes.
And if you put it all in Italian.
Rondo.
Yes.
E capriccioso.
Yes, well, without the A. Rondo capriccioso. It's from the introduction and Rondo capriccioso by, for your second mark.
Oh, but he didn't give it.
No. I think we've done very well.
Yeah.
You and I think we've done. I think we'll rest on that.
All right. Yes. You stick at that. 1 mark out of 2. I'll give you the answer, the composer's name, in the immortal words of Ogden Nash. If you remember, Camille Saint-Saëns was racked with pains when people addressed him as Saint Sains. He held the human race to blame because they could not pronounce his name. Saint-Saëns.
Well, I'm afraid as far as he's concerned, softly awakes my heart and danse macabre is my dead string.
Yes. 1 out of 2. Denis, all I want from you for one of your marks, first of all, is the missing word.
Kalamazoo.
Yes, there's 1 mark. Kalamazoo. And for your second mark, which state is it in?
That's the end.
Chinsaw.
I'll make my bid for that. Yeah, I'll make my bid for that freckle-faced kid. I'm hurrying to... I'm going to Michigan to see that.
Yes.
Michigan.
I'm going to Michigan to see the sweetest gal in Kalamazoo. There's your second mark. Good. John Amos, title and composer, please, of this. And if the first few seconds should baffle you, the composer's clear fingerprint is there from the 14th second onwards. I'll warrant.
Yes, I think it's Elgar.
Yes, and the composition?
I don't know, it's probably one of those Slomp and Percumstances. Herb and Slomp
No, it's from the Yond of Wooth.
Oh, it's the Yond of Wooth, is it?
Yond of Wooth, yes. It's the overture from the Wand of Youth Suite, number 1. 1 mark out of 2 for you. Frank, back to another example of Miller music, Glenn Miller. Who are the singers in this period piece?
They get a load of those guys high in the skies, winging to victory.
Up and at 'em in the fight for people like you and me.
They get a load of those gobs doing their jobs, keeping the sea lanes free.
Just to make the future bright for people like you and me.
Not Walter Midgley.
No, it was last week. You don't know them, do you?
Shoot me and
well, Dennis, you can spy the names, can't you? Tex?
Well, there's more. Yeah, Tex Beneke and Marion Hutton. I think the Modernaires also sing on that later on as well.
Yes, that's right. But they were the ones we heard, Tex Beneke and Marion Hutton, from the soundtrack of Orchestra Wives.
It was very interesting, though, Stephen. Thank you for letting us hear it.
Well, there you go. As we say where I come from, Saki.
It's wonderful that we all sat here during the war, or just before the war, this was, just the beginning of the war, and listened to lyrics like, look at those gobs doing their jobs. Awful.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next round, turn to operatic matters. Ian Wallace, have you ever had the occasion to use the services of a souffleur?
Yes.
You have.
In a word.
A necessary thing, yes. What do they do?
Yeah, cleared it up nicely, didn't it?
It's the person who hisses the words at you, in other words, the prompter.
Yes, in a French or German opera house.
But of course, or Italian, where they call him a suggeritore.
That's right, maestro suggeritore.
And, of course, the thing that is different between the opera house and the theatre is that, of course, the operatic prompter gives you the prompt whether you need it or not. It doesn't have to develop that nasty pause that happens in the theatre. It's a very, very skilled thing to do. I've heard singers speak rather disparagingly sometimes about prompters, saying they were only fair weather prompters. They were very good provided nothing went wrong. I believe there was a famous lady prompter many, many years ago in one of the Middle European opera houses who was marvellous, giving the lines, but as soon as anything went amiss, all she would do was just to put her hands up to her forehead and say, wrong, wrong!
Well, interesting. A mark to Ian, so much for prompters. Dennis, what can you tell me about May Night?
May Night? It's about time her name was brought out because it's her sister who gets all the attention generally, who is June Night, who appears in thousands of songs. Wasn't the moon? What's that? June Night, the moonlight, and you, and so on. Yes. But nobody's ever written a song starring May Night at all. And I think what I can tell you about her is that she's been there in the background ironing June Night's dresses and so on.
And we're paying a well-deserved tribute to her tonight. Yes, because if it wasn't for these little people behind the scenes, who I always want to say that when people get these awards on the radio and they, on the television, and they always come forward and they say, well, I really don't know what to say. I always want to say, well, let the loser go up there because he'll know what to say.
Very true. I have to tell you that May Night is a 3-act opera by Rimsky-Korsakov, based on a story by Gogol, which I thought you might possibly know with your literary connections.
It's a bit of a...
John Amos, what can you tell me about Monsieur Taupe? T-A-U-P-E, Monsieur Taupe.
I think he's a character in an opera by Richard Strauss.
Yes, what does he do? What's his function?
He's a wigger.
A what?
Isn't he a wigger?
No, not according to my information.
A barber?
No, he's a souffleur. He's a prompter.
Souffleur.
He's a prompter who appears in Strauss's... Did you name the opera?
Capriccio.
Yes. Also Intermezzo, yes. Half a mark, I think, because you got Strauss and so on, but not the job. Frank, what can you tell me about Love in a Village?
Well, it's no worse off than Love in a Village. It's the same thing.
Prickly sometimes.
Love in the Village is by Isaac Bickerstaff.
Oh, you know.
Who then...
My job, I wasn't ready for this at all.
He's an interesting character because he's a very successful writer of the 18th century who then, owing to some crime unspecified, had to leave the country. And I've always tried to find out what it was.
Oh, yes.
It was a heinous crime that made him leave. It was Love in a Village was one, I think, of those ballad operas which started with Gay's
Beggar's Opera.
Beggar's Opera, and petered out actually soon after Bickerstaff, which is terribly unfortunate, isn't it? Because the marvellous idea of doing a play, because they weren't operas at all, they were plays, but the actors were required to sing some rather satirical lyrics to well-known airs, which was a marvellous theatrical form, which was totally 18th century.
Well, Love in a Village, as Frank said, a ballad opera in 3 acts, compiled anyway, by Thomas Arne and Bickerstaff, 1762. There was a new edition of it at Aldborough in 1952. Right, let's move on to the next round. One of the great triumphs of British music making is the amateur choir, singing just for the love of singing, and often achieving a very high standard. Like, for example, the Reading Phoenix Choir. The questions in this round all concern performances by that choir, beginning with a question for Ian. Ian Wallace, who composed this? Ian, born in London, like yourself, but also, like you, orientated towards Scotland. You know him, he wrote a Hebridean symphony, a Pibroch, for cello and harp, and that lovely song.
Yes, I was listening to that lovely performance, too. I was, my mind was going to another choir, a rather older choir, the Glasgow Orpheus, because that is a song that was famous in their repertoire called Sea Sorrow. And the Englishman was Granville Bantock.
Sir, in fact.
Sir Granville Bantock, who was a great friend of Hugh Robertson. And there's a story about one time when Hugh Robertson went to stay with Granville Bantock, and he arrived at Bantock's house to find Bantock standing on the doorstep wearing a kilt, which he'd obviously hired from somewhere, a pair of white tennis shoes, and curious socks that were held up with tartan suspenders. And everywhere in the house that Bantock had been able to find something tartan, there were tartan ribbons to trip him up as he got to the top of the staircase. And afterwards, Bantock had said the only part of the joke that he was deeply regretting he'd missed was that he wasn't able to find a silk hat to wear with the kilt to greet him at the door.
He's a nice man. Sir Grenville Bantock. That was his Sea Sorrow, as you said, that we heard. Mark to Ian. Dennis, this is called the Riddle Song. While it's on, see if you can think up a musical riddle. Remember one, or even, I don't know, even make one up. Can you?
No.
Try. Lovely bit of singing. Any luck, Dennis, with your riddle?
What do you call a girl who thinks about nothing but classical music?
I don't know. What do you call a girl who thinks about nothing but classical music?
A symphomaniac.
Some of our 100-year-old listeners will remember a riddle from the old music hall days. Do you remember, why was Haydn coughing? The answer, because he gave his vest to Tilly.
2 marks to Steve Race.
Why not? John, back to our choir again. Title, please, and composer of this lament. That, folks, was not the choir, but the John Ames. It is...
It's by Monteverdi.
That's right, both of them.
Joe
Yes.
Greenberg.
Yes, and it is, in fact...
It's Lamento di Ariadne.
That's right, all that survives of the opera Ariadne by Monteverdi. Mark, to you. Frank, a Dutch composer called Svelink wrote this 5-part motet almost 400 years ago. Can you tell us, when it's over, how the word motet came into existence? Motet.
It's a very small motel. You know, it's 1 bedroom and a bicycle shed. A single bed. Am I warm?
Oh, that would do very nicely, I think, for 1 mark, actually. The answer is so simple one somehow wouldn't think of it. Motet is the Old French, the diminutive of mot, M-O-T, meaning a word.
It would be moet.
A little word. Mot, mot, as it were. Anyway.
Uncut.
Mark, to you, and so much for the music of the Reading Phoenix Choir, most of whom I think are with us in the audience. Let's make them take a bow. Reading Phoenix Choir, where are you? Come on. Where are you? Stand up.
Well, very good. Them rising from the ashes of the programme.
Very good.
I'm delighted that they're here because I had the great pleasure and privilege of singing a concert with them very recently. And you know, they've all stood up so nicely, but I think that we ought to have a special stand-up for their conductor, Norman Morris.
Hear, hear. Norman.
Go on, Norman.
I don't know if you noticed, Ian, Norman has an endearing habit, just before he begins to conduct the choir, of rubbing his hands together like this, much to say, let's make music, and then he conducts it. It's a lovely moment.
Nerves.
On to the next round. There are various sets of initials that are well known in the world of music. At least I think they're well known. We'll find out if they are. Ian Wallace, what does WNO stand for?
Opera?
Yes. W...
Oh, well, it has to be Welsh National.
That's right, the Welsh National Opera. WNO gets you a mark, that's right. Dennis, what does GSM suggest to you? GSM.
Gilbert and Sullivan Museum. Gilbert O'Sullivan Museum. That's all right. Don't just hang about, Steve, because the answer's coming
SM
as fast as hand
is the
can
clue.
write. Oh, yes,
Ian's
of course.
got
The
it.
Guildhall School of Music.
Yes, thank you for a mark. John, M-I-M-I-T. M-I-M-I-T. It's not easy, but it's genuine, it's real.
Your tiny hand is frozen, so grab a cup of hot tea.
Yes? Oh, Mimi. That's it.
The ministry is musical.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And in time. Or was it J?
I'll tell you what.
Yes.
As an old campaigner in quiz programs,
Yes, right.
over the
Right.
years...
Okay, right. You give me the advice, right?
Am I member of the Institute?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Steve?
yes, that's right.
Right, take it from there.
Yes.
Member of the Institute.
Musical...
Yes.
Musically inclined terpsichoreans.
Musically inclined terpsichoreans.
Well, that's very nice. It's well worth half a mark. It should be, actually, a member of the Institute of Musical Instrument Technicians.
Good.
It's a good half mark to you. Frank, how would you interpret ARCO?
Associate of the Royal.
Yes.
Without a shadow of doubt. There's no argument there. Associate of the Royal College of Ophthalmic...
And you were doing so well.
Associate of the Royal College of, I am informed, Ophthalmic Organists.
Yes. They live in a highly decorated building just by the Albert Hall.
Oh,
That's
yes.
Associate of the
Looks like
Royal
a piece
College
of
of
cake.
Organists. Pardon?
Looks like a piece of cake.
It does, yes. Looks like a wedding cake. That's right, yes. In this closing round, by tradition, the order is slightly changed. We have a drop of singing from Dennis, John, Frank, and then finally Ian, who takes us out with a basso-baritonal flourish.
I think it's a very nice phrase to say that. Yeah, a drop of singing. A drop in singing. Yeah, a descent of singing.
Dennis, it's you first, of course. And by the way, all the songs in this final round have something to do with dreams and dreaming. So, a song, Dennis, please, about a walking dream.
Ah, yeah, that old one. Did
Yes.
you ever see a dream walking? Well, I did. Did you ever hear a dream talking? Well, I did. Did you ever have heaven close in your arms saying, I love you, I do? Well, the dream that was walking and the dream that was talking in the heaven in my arms was you.
Dennis, if you just leave your name and address with Norman Morris.
John said to me, only 3 keys.
Yes,
I know. Well, that's because Steve didn't give me the first one, you see. I saved myself at least 3 keys then.
Well, there you are. 2 marks to you. I'm going to give John a chord or
3
2.
keys and the fountain.
John, after a French dream, according to Monsieur Faure, can we have the first 7 or 8 bars? After a French dream. I'll give you the introduction. All right?
Que charmait ton image, je rêvais le bonheur, ardent mirage.
2 marks, and another musical plunge coming. Frank. Jesse Matthews. Let me continue. Jessie Matthews dreamed of a lover on the ceiling of her bedroom. Can you give us it, please?
He's dancing overhead on the ceiling near my bed. Just my love, high above. I try to hide in vain underneath the counterpane. It's not fair, he's still there.
Go on.
I whisper, go away, my lover, it's not fair. But I'm delighted to discover he's still there. I love my ceiling more, now it is the dancing floor. Just for my love.
Finally, Ian. Your dream, Ian, is in E-flat. I think, knowing your range, and it's of another man's wife, Mrs. Stephen Foster, and the colour of her hair. Can you manage that?
I dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair, born like a zephyr on the summer air. I see her tripping where the bright streams play. Happy are the daisies that dance on her way. Many were the wild notes her merry voice would pour. Many were the blithe birds that warbled them all. I dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair, floating like a zephyr on the soft summer air.
Floating like a zephyr on the radio air has been this edition of My Music, a victory by 2 marks for Ian Wallace and Denis Norden. Goodbye.
Taking part in My Music were John Amos, Frank Muir, Denis Norden, and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the program was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.